Welcome, everyone. We're going to sing our hymn of the month, Do You Hear? This song expresses our theme of the month of practicing resistance. It asks us to hear the call of life, dreams, and prayers all around us. So let's rise, embody your spirit, and sing together. No matter your age, your size, or the way you move, or the song in your heart, this is a place for you. Together we will sing, wonder, and grow in the spirit of love. I'm Reverend Joyce, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. Joining me this morning in worship are music director Tim and our choir, director of religious education Lindsay Trank, and worship associate Alexis. Keith is running tech for us today. Thank you so much. If you are in person, do join us for coffee hour after the service. Our board and finance team are providing hospitality today. And Dave Schubert came by last night because there was a family reunion and they had lots of desserts left over. So there's lots of desserts. So if today is your first day worshiping with us, online or in person, we are thrilled that you are here. Please stop by the welcome table in the narthex and let us know who you are so that we can be in touch. Worship associate.
I'm Alexis. My pronouns are she, her. We are worshiping in the homeland of Indigenous Ho-Chunk and Potawatomi people and are humbled to be on this sacred ground. This land, this country, this liberal faith, and our very lives are inherited from the complicated intersections of oppression, freedom, resistance, migration, war, justice-making, and hope. From these legacies, we learn, grow, seek repair, give thanks, and build a better world for those who will inherit our choices. We gather today for worship, and as we gather, we join in our sacred ritual. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our faith, a beacon of truth, a fire for justice, a warmth for the soul. One of our children, Adelina, will light the chalice today. Yesterday, she auditioned for a role in Tall Tales at the studio. Good luck. Let us speak together the covenant of our church. Love is the spirit of this church, and reason is its guide, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in freedom, and to serve human need. This is our covenant. Now let's sing together our chalice response song.
Let us worship together. We gather into this beloved community, seeking to place love at the center. We begin with the prayers of the people, speaking our joys and our sorrows, and holding close those we love. We hold in our prayers this morning the family of Renee Good and the city of Minneapolis at this tragic and sad time. We hold in love all who are healing, all who live with illness, and all who are carrying burdens of body, mind, or spirit. May they be met with compassion, steady support, and a renewing of hope. I invite you now to speak aloud or to name in the silence of your heart those who you are holding in love. And now, is one simple way we practice community. Please turn and greet your neighbor, sharing a word of welcome and helping make this space feel like home. So before I continue with our invocation, I want to share a few words about our display shelf this morning. This display reflects our Unitarian Universalist commitment to moral resistance to systems and policies that cause harm and deny the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We have shoes of different sizes, symbolizing we can all take a stand, no matter our size. There's a clipboard and a calendar for the organizers, and a UUA Stand on the Side of Love t-shirt. We wear these often when we gather to take a stand, and we're often known as the people with the yellow shirts. Our call to action is rooted in love, conscience, and solidarity. Our invocation words were written by Andrea Hawkins Camper. Blessed are we who gather with open hearts, together in this space today. Blessed are we, the chalice lighters of resistance, justice, love, and faith. Blessed are we, the heretics, the outcasts, the walkers of our own way. Blessed are we, the border crossers, the refugees, the immigrants, the poor, the wanderers who are not lost. Blessed are we, the transgressors, the trespassers, the passers-by, the cause takers, the defiant, the compliant. Blessed are we, the hand extenders, the sign makers, the protesters, the protectors. Blessed are we, the trans women, the trans men, the non-binary, the cisgender, the multigender, the no gender. Blessed are we, the friend, the stranger, the lonely, the hidden, the visible, the authentic. Blessed are we who rise in solidarity. Blessed are we who cannot. Blessed are we who do not. Blessed are we, for this is our beloved community. Come, let us worship together.
I'm Lindsay, your Director of Religious Education, and my pronouns are she and her. Working with our children and youth today are Rose in the nursery, Lisa and Sandy with the 1st through 3rd grade group, myself with the 4th through 6th grade group, and Ashley and Art with the youth group. I'd like to thank our members and friends that participated in the guest panel for the grades 7 through 9 Our Whole Lives session last Sunday, as well as our OWL facilitators, Billy, Julie, and Kate, for planning and preparing that special session. So thank you all for helping to make that happen. As a reminder, the sound of children is always welcome here, but please do silence your electronic devices. Our story this morning is The Day You Begin by Jacqueline Woodson. There will be times when you walk into a room and no one there is quite like you. Maybe it will be your skin, your clothes, or the curl of your hair. There will be times when no one understands the way the words curl from your mouth, the beautiful language of the country you left behind. My name is Rigoberto. We just moved here from Venezuela. And because they don't understand, the classroom will fill with laughter until the teacher quiets everyone. Rigoberto from Venezuela, your teacher says so soft and beautifully that your name and homeland sounds like flowers blooming, the first bright notes of a song. There will be times when the words don't come, your own voice, once huge, now smaller, when the teacher asks, "What did you do last summer?" Tell the class your story. "We went to France," Chayla says. "These shells came from a beach in Maine." A boy named Jonathan holds out a jar filled with tiny shells so fragile they look like they'll turn to dust in your own untraveled hands. "My whole family went to India, Spain, South Carolina." Each souvenir a small triumph of a journey, their travels going on and on. And as you stand in front of that room, you can only remember how the heat waved as it lifted off the curb, and your days spent at home caring for your little sister who made you laugh out loud and hugged you hard at nap time. You can only remember the books you kept on reading long after she had fallen asleep. And in that room, where no one else is quite like you, you'll look down at your own empty hands and wonder, what good is this when other students were flying and sailing and going somewhere? There will be times when the lunch your mother packed for you is too strange or too unfamiliar for others to love as you do. When even your own friend Nadia will wrinkle her nose and say, "What's in there anyway?" And you'll wonder how she doesn't see the rice beneath the meat and kimchi. You'll wonder why she doesn't remember that rice is the most popular food in the world. There will be times when the climbing bars are too high, the run is too fast and far, the game isn't one you can ever really play. I don't want him on our team. You can just watch. Maybe you can have a turn later. There will be times when the world feels like a place you're standing all the way outside of. and all that stands beside you is your own brave self. Steady as steel and ready, even though you don't yet know what you're ready for. There will be times when you walk into a room and no one there is quite like you, until the day you begin to share your stories. My name is Angelina, and I spent my whole summer with my little sister, you tell the class, your voice stronger than it was a minute ago, reading books and telling stories, and even though we were right on our block, it was like we could go everywhere. Your name is like my sister's, Rigoberto says. Her name is Angelina too. And all at once, in the room where no one else is quite like you, the world opens itself a little wider to make some space for you. This is the day you begin to find the places inside your laughter and your lunches, your books, and your travel, and your stories, where every new friend has something a little like you, and something else so fabulously not quite like you at all. And if you'll join us in singing the first verse of this little light of mine, we'll head downstairs.
I hope you subscribe to the Kairos, our weekly newsletter. Please be sure to read it for announcements about upcoming events and activities. This week, I want to highlight our upcoming community outing to the Rockford Ice Hogs game on Sunday, January 18th at 4 p.m. Get your tickets as we cheer on the team and our choir, who will sing the national anthem. Tickets are available using the QR code on the screen in the announcements and in the link in Kairos. If you need help with the purchase process or funds to pay for the ticket, please let me or Kendra know. Our activity fair for the groups and teams of the church is scheduled for Sunday, January 25th, after the service. We will have a limited number of tables, and we will find room for everyone. Please sign up today in Deal Hall to reserve your group spot. This is a great opportunity for newcomers or anyone looking for a new way to serve or learn more about how to get involved. Each month, we'll be highlighting the activities of one of our Faith in Action teams. For January, that is our Racial and Economic Justice team. And so I want to invite Gloria to come forward to let you know what they are doing.
Good morning. I'm Gloria Perez. My pronouns are she, her, and in Spanish, ella. Along with Scott Garwick, we co-lead the Racial and Economic Justice team. We meet the second Sunday of each month at 11:30. That's today. We also facilitate a service reflection meeting on the third Sunday of the month at 11:30. All are welcome to come and participate. This morning, I would like to invite you all to our wonderful Wednesday on January 21st at 6 p.m. We are in the process of finalizing plans and will let you know the program title soon. You are also invited to discuss the Unitarian Universalist Association Common Read, Social Change Now, a guide for reflection and connection. A UU Common Read is a book which all the congregations that make up the association are invited to read and discuss. I know some of you have already purchased the book, and I know that Reverend Joyce has a few more copies available for purchase. If you'd like to have a book and can't find one, let Scott or me know when we will give you more information. We will keep you updated about setting a time for and a date for discussion of the book. Today, we share the plate with Rockford's nonprofit Life Decisions building a tribe of mentors. This group works with at-risk youth, providing support, structure, and opportunities aiming for restoration in the lives of young people and the community. The offering will now be given and most gratefully received.
I invite you now to join me in a time of prayer and meditation. Let us settle. Feel your feet on the floor if that's comfortable for you. Let your shoulders soften. Take one slow breath. This has been a heavy week, unsettling in many ways. We come together without pretending. We come to be held by community and to remember that we are not alone. Spirit of life, named or unnamed, steadies us. Help us set down what we cannot carry today. Strengthen us for what we can. Keep us grounded in spirit. Keep us tender. Keep us connected. And now I invite you into the silence. Rest your attention on your breath and let the quiet do its work.
My brain is wired for language. I love it. I pay attention to it, I study it, I practice ways of saying things that are fun. I am a language nerd. One of the things about language that we use in our everyday lives, not up on stage in lofty speeches like this one, is that it matters a lot. It matters how we speak to each other, and it also matters how we speak to ourselves. I'm supposed to be talking about acts of resistance today, and that's apropos, especially in light of the recent and seemingly ongoing onslaught of terrible events. But for where I am right now in my own life, I have been looking inward instead. What I have learned is that language I use with myself matters. If I tell myself, I'm not racist, then I give myself zero room to question and all the excuses to never examine my own behavior. But like Avenue Q so beautifully put it, everyone's a little bit racist sometimes. And yeah, I have thought sometimes that I need to recognize as being a little bit racist, or sexist, or ableist, or just plainly false assumptions that I've accepted as truth. Resistance isn't just what we do to oppose the outside world. It's the work that we do on ourselves in examining our own thoughts, feelings, and attitudes. It's being willing to sit with discomfort and recognize just because we have a thought, it's not necessarily a true one. The cost of self-reflection can be anywhere from mild discomfort to agonizing pain. But the cost of avoiding it altogether is far greater. It is the cost of a better world.
Please rise in body or spirit for our next hymn. Our first reading is a retelling of an excerpt from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's TED Talk, The Danger of a Single Story. In it, Adichie reflects on how one repeated narrative can start to stand for the whole truth, and what we lose individually and collectively when we stop making room for complexity and context. A single story is what happens when one narrative gets repeated so often that it becomes the only story we can imagine. The problem with a single story is that it is incomplete. It leaves out so much. And what's left can start to feel like the whole truth. Adichie describes arriving at college in the United States from her home in Nigeria and meeting her roommate, who had formed a single story about Africa. Her roommate was shocked that Adichie spoke English so well. She was surprised that Adichie listened to the same music everyone else listened to. At the time, Mariah Carey was very heavy on her rotation. She couldn't quite picture that a person from Africa could be ordinary in these ways, smart, funny, complex, familiar. And Adichie realized this is what a single story does. It doesn't always come from cruelty. Sometimes it comes from repetition and distance. But it still reduces a person to what someone expects them to be. Stories are connected to power, to who gets to tell them, who gets listened to, and which stories become the default. When we reject the single story, when we choose the fuller story, we restore complexity and dignity, and we make room to meet one another, so more than what we seem. Our next reading is entitled Proof by Cornelius Eady, written for and read at the inauguration of New York City's new mayor, Mamdani. It carries the spirit of an inauguration, public words spoken at a turning point, with hope, honesty, and responsibility held together. It's possible to imagine this poem's energy traveling beyond one city. You have to imagine it. Who said you were too dark, too large, too queer, too loud? Who said you were too poor, too strange, too fat? You have to imagine it. Who said you must keep quiet? Who heard your story, then rolled their eyes? Who tried to change your name to invisible? You've got to imagine. Who heard your name and refused to pronounce it? Who checked their watch and said, "Not now." James Baldwin wrote, "The place in which I'll fit will not exist until I make it." New York, city of invention, roiling town, refresher and renewer. New York, city of the real, where the canyons whisper in 100 tongues. New York, where your lucky self waits for your arrival, where there is always soil for your root. This is our time, the taste of us, the spice of us, the hollers and the rhythms and the beats of us, and the echo of our ancestors who made certain we know who we are. City of insistence, city of resistance. You have to imagine an army that wins without firing a bullet, a joy that wears down the rock of no. Up from insults, up from blocked doors, up from trick bags, up from fear, up from shame, up from the way it has been done before. You have to imagine that space they said wasn't yours. That time they said you'd never own. The invisible city, lit on its way. This moment is our proof. Resistance. Resistance is not the same as rage. Resistance does not require us to become people that we are not. It does not require a constant state of outrage or a perfect set of words or a level of courage we can only imagine in other people. Resistance is something steadier. Resistance is what we practice when we decide we will not cooperate with harm, especially the kind of harm that gets described as business as usual or just how things are. Today, we are holding a sentence in front of us, a sentence from Henry Highland Garnet. Let your motto be resistance. I keep thinking about the word motto. A motto is not an argument. It is not a speech. It is something you return to, something you can carry when you are tired or afraid or unsure what to do next. In August of 1843, nearly 100 Black leaders gathered in Buffalo, New York, to talk about the future prospects of Black America. Garnet was the main speaker, a clergyman who had escaped slavery in Maryland as a child. And he spoke with urgency about how long Black people had already been made to wait for justice and liberty. He said, "We have hoped in vain, and years have rolled on." Garnet spoke at a dangerous edge in history, on the cusp of enslavement and freedom, in a time when the future was being fought over and when the cost of speaking clearly could be high. He was speaking to people who were being told in 1,000 different ways to accept their place, to wait, to be quiet, to trust that someone else would decide what happened in their lives. And he said no. He offered a different kind of sentence to live by. Let your motto be resistance. I think part of why this word still reaches us is that many of us recognize the feeling of living at an edge. This moment also feels like a time that we are on the cusp of change in our country's direction. We can feel the ground shifting beneath us through elections, courts, policies, through what is being normalized in public speech, and through what has been excused as just politics. In a moment like this, it is easy to swing between two temptations. One is to panic and burn ourselves out. The other is to numb out and tell ourselves, it doesn't matter. Garnet offers another way. His sentence doesn't ask us to predict the future. It asks us to decide who we will be while the future is being shaped. This call to action to freely decide who you will be reminded me of my dad, who remembers the commencement speech at his high school graduation in 1963. So it must have been quite a commencement speech. The speaker offered a similar challenge to the graduating class of Sumner High School in Kansas City, Kansas. He said, "It is 1963, 100 years since the passing of the Emancipation Proclamation that was signed freeing our ancestors. What will you do with your freedom, young people?" We are being asked the same question. What will we do with our freedom, our privilege, our access to power? Let your motto be resistance. I don't hear that as permission to hate. I hear it as a permission to stand. I hear it as a call to refuse the stories that are used to justify cruelty and to refuse the stories that try to make suffering feel normal or deserved. And I also want to say, practicing resistance and being a witness is not only about bold actions in the street. Sometimes it is quieter than that. Sometimes it's what happens in a conversation when a finished story gets told about those people and you decide not to let it pass as truth. Sometimes it happens when you pause before repeating a headline or a rumor or a talking point, and you choose accuracy and care instead. Sometimes it's a decision to stay present to what is painful rather than turning away, because turning away would be easier. So we're placing Garnett's words in the center of this service, not as a slogan, but as a practice. We will listen for the stories that make people small. We will listen for what we are being asked to accept as inevitable. And we will ask what it looks like to resist in ways that fit our real lives. In The Danger of a Single Story, Adichie names something that can be hard to notice because it can sound so normal. An incomplete story is what happens when we hear one version of a person's life so many times that we forget there might be more there. The danger isn't in getting the facts wrong only. The danger is what it does to our own imagination, how it narrows our imagination, how it trains us to stop being curious, how it makes us feel finished before we have even listened. And most of the time, this isn't happening in a big public moment. It shows up in the kind of conversation you could easily forget 5 minutes later. Not long ago, I was talking with someone, nothing intense, just a regular conversation, and they said, "Well, those people," you probably know the tone. And then came the rest of it, like the conclusion had already been reached. Why people are where they are, why they do what they do, and why they don't do better. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't even especially harsh. It was just complete, a closed story. And I felt that small moment where you decide whether you're going to let it pass or you're going to say something. I didn't have a speech ready. I didn't have a perfect line. I just said, "How do you know that's the whole story?" And then I stopped. I didn't try to fill in the silence or make excuses, because sometimes the silence is where the shift happens. Not because someone changes their mind right away, but because the story is no longer allowed to stand as the only story. That question did not solve anything, but it did resist something. It resisted the move from a person to a category. It resisted the habit of making a whole human being feel like a simple explanation. That's part of why this week's news in Minnesota has been sitting so heavily with me. When I heard about the shooting of Renee Good, my mind went to Viola Liuzzo in 1965. And then almost immediately, I saw a post shared by a UU minister making the same comparison. Viola Liuzzo and Renee Good, two mothers, nearly the same age, 39 and 37, both with families that included 6-year-olds, both shot in their cars because they dared to show up in solidarity. In 1965, Viola answered Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's call for people of all faiths to come to Selma, Alabama. She was a longtime activist. She attended the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Detroit, and she called her husband to tell him she would be traveling to Selma to support the civil rights work. She was killed as she transported civil rights workers along the highway. And what happened after her death is part of the story too. The authorities did what authorities often do when the truth is inconvenient. They made up stories about her without the facts. They smeared her character to distract from what had happened and to make her death feel somehow less worthy of grief. And I hear echoes of that now, because one of the ways harm keeps happening is that after the harm, a second harm follows. A rush to explain it away, to muddy the water, to tell an incomplete story that makes the victim feel questionable and the violence feel inevitable. So I want to say this plainly. We can choose to show up for Renee Good, for her family, for the people who are afraid right now, and for the truth. And we can let Viola stand beside her as a witness across time, a reminder that solidarity always has a cost and that people have paid it anyway. We don't have to pretend that their stories are identical to recognize the pattern. Solidarity often gets punished, and then often solidarity gets rewritten as something reckless or suspicious or deserving. That rewriting is its own kind of violence, and resisting it is part of our work. That is what Adichie is warning us about. Incomplete stories make us feel certain when we should be careful. They make us feel entitled to conclusions without getting too close, without listening, without wondering if what we think is true. And once we accept an incomplete story about a person, it becomes easier to accept harm against them. It becomes easier to treat suffering as inevitable or deserved or simply how things are. That's part of why this week's news in Minnesota matters so much. If we let ourselves turn it into a finished story, something we file away as complicated or distant or about politics, we will lose the human being at the center of it. We will lose the grief, and we will lose the moral question that is actually being asked of us. What do we do with a system that can take a life and keep moving as if nothing happened? Adichie also reminds us that stories are connected to power. Who gets believed without effort? Who gets doubted? Who gets protected? And that's why the poem Proof lands the way it does for me, because it's asking the same questions. It names the exhaustion of having to prove again and again what other people are simply granted. So what do we do with all of this? We could treat it like an idea that we agree with, but Garnett won't let it stand there. Garnett offers a sentence, a practice, something that can hold us when we feel overwhelmed or tired or tempted to look away. Let your motto be resistance. I don't hear that as be loud all the time. I hear it as a refusing the incomplete story. Refuse the story that makes harm normal. Refuse the story that says there is nothing you can do. And then take the next faithful action where you are. And this is where I want to slow down with you. Because when something terrible happens, there is a rush to know everything, a rush to post, a rush to decide what it means. And sometimes the most faithful thing we can do is not rush. Sometimes the faithful thing is to become the kind of people who can hold the weight of a story without turning it into a weapon. To be witnesses without turning grief into a talking point. To be witnesses without adding to the noise. And to be witnesses without letting the story be stolen by rumors or smears or the easy comforts of certainty. This is also resistance, to speak carefully, to listen longer, to refuse the incomplete story, even when the complete story is the one that will make us feel temporarily satisfied. If Garnett gives us a motto, then this is the honest question. What does resistance look like in bodies like ours, in schedules like ours, in lives that are already full? Because showing up can sound simple and still be hard. So let me offer a few ordinary ways to show up, not as a checklist, just as an opening. Choose one. Choose what you can sustain. Maybe showing up looks like learning one thing you didn't know from a source that values truth and letting that slow down your certainty. Maybe showing up looks like reaching out to someone who is scared right now, not to interrogate, not to fix, just to say, I'm here, I'm thinking of you. What would be helpful? Maybe showing up looks like interrupting one small judgment in a conversation, in a comment thread, in a group text with a sentence like, let's be careful, we don't have the whole story. Maybe showing up looks like giving to a local fund that supports families in crisis. Maybe showing up looks like voting for your neighbors, like your neighbor's safety matters, then staying engaged after the election is over. And sometimes it looks like joining something so you are not carrying it alone. And that's why I want to echo the invitation Gloria gave about joining the Racial and Economic Justice team in reading Social Change Now together. This is not homework to prove you're good. We're meeting to share our thoughts and letting it be a practice space, a place to ask, what is mine to do? And not have to answer that question alone. It is a way to build capacity, to practice, to get clearer, to find your part, to be accountable with care. The team will provide details soon about meeting dates and times. And sometimes showing up really does mean showing up. Today, there are 2 actions nearby calling for accountability for ICE agents. If you're able, if it is safe for you, if you have the capacity, one gathering is ICE Out for Good, organized by State Line Indivisible and other community groups from 12 to 1 outside the U.S. Congressional District Office on East State Street. And later today, there's a justice vigil for our communities affected by ICE from 2 to 3 at the U.S. Courthouse, the federal courthouse, organized by the League of Women Voters and Rockford Urban Ministries and others. You do not have to do both. You do not have to do either to be a good person or to be a good you. But if you've been asking yourself, what could I do today that is real and not just private worry? This is one answer. Bring a friend, bring your steady self, bring respect for the people most affected. And if you cannot be there in person, let that be information, not shame. There are still ways to show up. A note of support, a call, a donation, a conversation you refuse to let turn cruel. Resistance has many forms, but it almost always includes some version of presence. The truth is, many of us want to help, and we get stuck at the same point. We don't know what to do first, or we try to do everything and burn out, or we do something once and then disappear because it doesn't seem effective fast enough. So this is one simple invitation. Don't disappear. Stay with it. Stay close enough to be changed. Stay connected enough to be steady. And if you don't have much to give right now, if you are tired or stretched thin or grieving yourself, showing up can still look like staying human, staying tender, refusing to let fear make you smaller, because that counts too. If this moment in our country feels like we are on the cusp, then we need people who can keep showing up after the adrenaline fades. We need people who can tell fuller stories. We need people who can be witnesses without turning away. So let Garnett's words be practical for us. Let them be a sentence that you carry into Monday. Let them be something you return to when you feel tired or cynical or tempted to say, it won't matter. Let your motto be resistance in your choices, in your speech, in your attention, in your compassion, in the way that you show up again and again. So now we will sing, as people have sung in moments like this, to remember that we are not alone, to remember our courage, to remember our commitments. Let us rise, embody our spirit, and sing together, "We Shall Overcome." Alexis will extinguish our chalice, not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we are together again. While she does that, I invite you to hold hands if you'd like. If you'd rather not be touched, place your hands in your pockets or on your shoulders. The words of our benediction are from Romans 12. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds. Now, let us sing our closing blessing.